The sun dipped low over Savannah, Georgia, painting Broughton Street in hues of amber and rose. Laughter spilled from open shop doors, mingling with the distant wail of a saxophone as cobblestones echoed with the click of heels. Sterling's table, an upscale restaurant, glowed like a jewel under the street lamps, its polished windows reflecting the promise of elegance. Inside, candlelight danced on white tablecloths, and the clink of wine glasses carried an air of exclusivity. A man stepped through the door, tall and broad-shouldered, his presence quiet but commanding. His deep mahogany skin contrasted with his simple white shirt, neatly pressed, and navy slacks that bore no designer labels. His leather satchel hung modestly at his side, and his polished shoes gleamed with care. He wasn't here to impress, he was here to observe. Unbeknownst to the staff, this was Marcus Langston, the new owner of Sterling's Table, stepping into his own restaurant for the first time. At the hostess stand, Amanda, the assistant manager, froze mid-scroll on her reservation tablet. Her gold-plated name tag gleamed, but her eyes narrowed as they scanned Marcus from head to toe. Her smile was a practiced mask, tight and fleeting, betraying a flicker of judgment. "Table for one?" she asked, her voice dripping with a politeness that felt like a blade's edge. Marcus nodded, his voice steady. "Yes, please." Amanda's fingers tapped the tablet, her brow furrowing theatrically. Despite empty tables glowing under pendant lights, she sighed. "We're pretty booked, but I've got something in the back." She led him past elegant booths to a wobbly table by the restroom, where the air carried a faint whiff of bleach. Marcus's eyes flicked to the untouched table by the window, but he said nothing, his face unreadable. The table was a punishment, shoved against a stained wall near the kitchen's swinging doors. Each clang of metal and gust of greasy air felt like an insult. Marcus sat, unfolding the napkin with deliberate grace, his movements a quiet defiance against the space he'd been assigned. Diners at nearby tables stole glances, a smirk here, a whisper there, but Marcus's gaze remained steady, scanning the menu like a man searching for truth in a lie. Amanda handed him the menu with 2 fingers, as if it might stain her manicured nails. "Enjoy," she said, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. As she walked away, her heels clicked like a countdown. Marcus's lips pressed into a thin line, not anger, but recognition. He'd been here before in corners like this where dignity was a privilege to be earned. Tonight, though, something burned behind his eyes, a plan taking shape. Marcus chose simply: trout, asparagus, herbed potatoes, unsweetened iced tea. No frills, no pretense, just a meal. When Amanda returned, her arms were crossed, her smile more grimace than greeting. "Trout, huh?" she said, voice pitched high with mockery. "Big spender tonight, aren't we? That's what, $27? Her laugh was a blade, slicing through the hum of the dining room. He met her gaze, unflinching. "I ordered," he said, his voice calm but heavy, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Amanda leaned in, her words venomous. "We get guys like you all the time, acting like you belong here. Don't choke on the tip line." Marcus's fingers tapped the table, tap, 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 a rhythm of restraint. The air thickened, and the restaurant seemed to hold its breath. When the food arrived, it was a mockery of the menu's promise. The trout was dry, its edges curling like burnt paper. The asparagus lay limp, greasy, and pale, while the potatoes were a gray, clumped mess. Compared to the vibrant dishes gliding past to other tables, Marcus's plate looked like an afterthought, scraped from the bottom of a pan. Amanda dropped it with a thud, muttering, "Bon appetit!" Her sarcasm, thick enough to choke on. Marcus took a single bite, chewing slowly as if tasting every insult baked into the fish. He set the fork down, his hands folding with a stillness that felt dangerous. Around him, the restaurant buzzed. Laughter, clinking glasses, a child's squeal, but his corner was a shadow, a place where respect was rationed. He wasn't eating anymore. He was waiting. Marcus rose, heading toward the main restroom, but Amanda's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Sir!" She strode over, arms crossed, her tone dripping with authority. "That restroom's for real customers. You'll need to use the one downstairs, by the mop sink." Her smile was a challenge, daring him to argue. The dining room quieted, eyes turning like spotlights. "I'm a customer," Marcus said, his voice low but firm. Amanda scoffed. "You spent what? $27? Policy says $50 minimum for the main restroom." His jaw tightened, but his tone stayed even. "That's not on the menu," she smirked. "It's company policy. Don't like it? Take the service stairs." The words were a slap, wrapped in fake politeness, and the room watched, breathless. Marcus turned, walking toward the dim hallway Amanda pointed to. The floor shifted from polished wood to stained cement, the air growing heavy with the scent of bleach and damp. The basement restroom was a grim relic, a cracked mirror, a yellowed sink, a flickering bulb buzzing like a trapped insect. He washed his hands, the faucet groaning, and caught his reflection, not angry, but resolved. As he dried his hands on a flimsy paper towel, his fingers brushed the satchel at his side. Inside was something more powerful than rage. Proof. He stepped back into the dining room, the golden light clashing with the cold resolve in his chest. The game had changed, and Amanda had no idea what was coming. When Marcus returned, his table was gone. The wobbly chair, the cold plate, the untouched iced tea, erased as if he'd never existed. A waitress, wiping a nearby table, stammered, "We thought you left." Marcus's voice was steel. "I was gone 4 minutes." The dining room's chatter faltered, heads turning as Amanda appeared, her smile smug. "You took off. We assumed you ditched the bill." His fists clenched, but his voice stayed low, dangerous. "Don't lie." Amanda's eyes flashed. "You left. We cleaned up. Got a problem? Talk to management." Marcus stepped closer, his presence a quiet storm. "You knew I didn't leave. You watched me go." The air crackled, and the diners leaned in, sensing a reckoning. Marcus reached into his satchel, pulling out a slim black folder. The room seemed to shrink around him, every eye locked on his hands. He opened it, revealing a single page, an official contract, crisp and undeniable. Amanda's smirk faltered as he handed it to her. "This," he said, voice slicing through the silence, "is the ownership agreement. I bought this chain 2 months ago." Amanda's face drained of color, her fingers trembling as she scanned the document. The restaurant gasped, whispers erupting like sparks. Marcus's eyes burned into hers. "Now tell me why you treated a paying guest like garbage, made up policies, and threw away my meal." The truth hung in the air, sharp and unyielding, and Amanda had nowhere to hide. Amanda stammered, her voice thin. I didn't know." Marcus's eyebrow arched. "Didn't know or didn't care?" Her polished exterior cracked, panic seeping through. "You should have said something," she blurted, but the words sounded hollow, desperate. The diners watched, some with shock, others with quiet approval as the power dynamic flipped. Marcus's voice was calm, but piercing. "I shouldn't have to announce who I am to be treated like a human being." A murmur rippled through the room, chairs squeaking as people leaned closer. Amanda's eyes darted, searching for an ally, but the restaurant was no longer hers. It belonged to the man she'd tried to erase. The side door burst open, and Todd, the restaurant manager, rushed in, summoned by a server's frantic text. His eyes darted from Amanda's pale face to the folder in Marcus's hand. "What's going on?" he asked, voice trembling. Marcus handed him the contract. "Your employee humiliated me, lied about policies, and cleared my table to pretend I left." Todd's face turned ashen as he read the document. "Sir, this is real?" Marcus nodded. "And she knew none of it because she never thought I was worth knowing." Amanda's voice broke in. "He tricked us." Marcus's gaze was unrelenting. "All I did was show up hungry." The room held its breath, waiting for the next move. Todd, desperate to defuse the situation, suggested reviewing the security footage. "Just to be clear for HR," he said nervously. Marcus nodded, his calm unshaken. A young server returned with a tablet, her hands shaking as she whispered, "It's all there." The footage rolled. Amanda's mocking tone, the restroom confrontation, the tossed plate, the lie about policy. Gasps echoed as the video played on low volume. A diner muttered, "Unbelievable." Another replied, "No, it's not." The evidence was undeniable, a mirror held up to Amanda's actions. Marcus stood still, his presence a quiet indictment, as the restaurant realized the depth of her betrayal. Before Amanda could flee, the truth had already spread. A teenager at a corner table had live-streamed the confrontation, and within minutes, the video had 30,000 views. Hashtags like "Dine with Dignity" and "He Owns It" trended. Amanda's face blurred in some posts, clear in others. The narrative was no longer hers to control. It belonged to the world. Marcus didn't react to the growing buzz. His focus remained on Amanda, whose eyes now glistened with unshed tears. "You set yourself up," he said, his voice a blade of truth. The diners watched, some nodding, others whispering, as the weight of justice settled over the room like a storm breaking. Todd turned to Marcus, his voice shaking. "Sir, I'm so sorry. This isn't who we are." Marcus's gaze was steady. "It's who you've allowed." Amanda, desperate, stammered, "It was a misunderstanding. I was just doing my job." But her words crumbled under the weight of the footage, the contract, and Marcus's unyielding presence. A woman in her 60s, adorned with pearls, approached Marcus, her hand trembling as she touched his arm. "Thank you for not walking away," she said, voice cracking. Marcus nodded, his eyes softening. "Some fights are worth standing through." The room felt smaller, the air heavier with shared realization. Todd's voice trembled as he faced Amanda. "Take off your name tag." Her eyes widened. "You're firing me?" He didn't flinch. "You did this to yourself." Her fingers shook as she unclipped the gold-plated tag, its gleam mocking her now. She held it out, but no one took it. She dropped it on the table, the clatter echoing like a gavel. As Amanda stormed toward the exit, a single clap broke the silence, then another, growing into a wave of applause. Not for her departure, but for Marcus's stand. He didn't bask in it. He stood still and composed, watching the door close. This wasn't about victory. It was about reclaiming what was his. The restaurant buzzed with whispers as diners returned to their meals. But the air had changed. Marcus sat back down, not at the corner table, but at a central booth, offered by a nervous Todd. The new plate arrived promptly. Perfectly seared trout, vibrant asparagus, golden potatoes. A silent apology. Marcus ate quietly, his presence a reminder of the power he wielded. Outside, the story was exploding. Social media lit up with comments, shares, and calls for accountability. A local news outlet picked up the video, and by morning, Sterling's table was trending nationwide. Marcus, however, didn't check his phone. He was already planning the next step, one that went beyond this night. The next evening, Marcus returned. Same shirt, same satchel, same quiet strength. This time, the staff snapped to attention, their smiles genuine, their service impeccable. Todd personally greeted him, his apology raw and unscripted. "We're retraining everyone," he said. "Not because you're the owner, but because it's right." Marcus nodded, his eyes scanning the room. The table by the restroom was gone, replaced by a small display of fresh flowers. He didn't smile, but there was a flicker of approval in his gaze. The restaurant wasn't just his property. It was his chance to rewrite its soul. Weeks later, a brass plaque appeared in the restaurant's quiet corner, near where Marcus's table once stood. It read, "Every guest deserves dignity without question, without exception." No name, no fanfare, just a promise etched in metal. Diners paused to read it, some snapping photos, others nodding in silent agreement. The staff whispered about the man who'd inspired it, the one who'd sat in the shadows and changed everything. Marcus didn't attend the plaque's unveiling. He didn't need to. His impact was already woven into the restaurant's fabric, a standard that outlasted any applause. The viral video sparked more than outrage. It ignited action. Local activists organized a Dine with Dignity campaign, encouraging patrons to demand respect at every table. Sterling's table became a symbol, its story shared in classrooms, boardrooms, and community centers. Marcus, though, stayed out of the spotlight, letting the movement grow on its own. A young server, inspired by Marcus's stand, began documenting staff training sessions, posting them online to show the restaurant's transformation. Her videos garnered thousands of views, each one a testament to the ripple effect of one man's quiet courage. The world was watching, and it was learning. Marcus wasn't always an owner. Flashbacks revealed a boy raised in Savannah's tougher streets, where dignity was a luxury often denied. He'd worked odd jobs, busboy, delivery driver, saving every penny to build a future. His quiet strength came from years of navigating spaces that didn't want him, each slight sharpening his resolve. He'd bought Sterling's table not for profit, but for legacy. His mother, a cook who'd never been allowed to sit at the tables she served, had dreamed of a place where everyone belonged. Marcus was her dream made real, and that night he'd walked in to honor her, not to gloat. Amanda, meanwhile, faced her own reckoning. The viral video made her name a cautionary tale, her LinkedIn profile scrubbed, her job prospects dim. She issued a public apology, but it rang hollow, drowned out by the hashtags that defined her. Some pitied her, others saw justice. Either way, her absence left a void the restaurant was eager to fill. Marcus didn't dwell on her fate. His focus was forward, on the staff retraining, the new policies, the culture shift. He wasn't here to punish. He was here to rebuild. But Amanda's shadow lingered, a reminder of how quickly prejudice could unravel a life. The retraining sessions were intense, led by a diversity consultant Marcus hired. Servers shared stories of their own biases, some tearful, others defiant. One waiter admitted he'd laughed at Amanda's restroom comment, ashamed now of his silence. The sessions weren't about shame, though. They were about growth, about learning to see every guest as human. Marcus sat in on one session, silent in the back, his presence enough to keep the room honest. When a young server asked why he didn't fire everyone, he said simply, "Because change starts with those willing to try." The room nodded, and the work continued. News outlets descended on Sterling's table, cameras flashing as reporters sought Marcus's story. He declined interviews, letting Todd and the staff speak instead. Their words were raw, unpolished, and real, detailing the restaurant's commitment to change. The public listened, and reservations soared. People wanted to see the place where dignity won. Social media kept the story alive, with influencers and activists amplifying Marcus's message. A local artist painted a mural across the street depicting a table where all were welcome. Marcus saw it one evening, his mother's face in the crowd, and for the first time he smiled. Old patrons returned, some curious, others loyal. A couple who'd witnessed the incident brought their family, praising the new warmth in the service. A child left a crayon drawing on a napkin, a man in a white shirt, standing tall. Marcus kept it in his satchel, a quiet reminder of why he fought. New faces came, too, drawn by the story. A young black couple sat at the central booth, their laughter filling the room. Marcus watched from the bar, unnoticed, his heart full. This was what he'd wanted, not fame, but a place where everyone belonged. Sterling's table was part of a chain, and Marcus's influence spread. He met with other managers, sharing the plaque's message and the footage that started it all. Some resisted, citing business as usual, but Marcus's quiet authority and the threat of more viral exposure pushed them to act. New policies rolled out. No guest turned away, no table denied. Corporate offices buzzed with talk of Marcus, the owner who'd walked in as a stranger and left as a legend. His story became a case study in boardrooms, a reminder that power wasn't in titles, but in actions. Marcus didn't attend those meetings. He was too busy dining at his own table. Marcus began mentoring young staff, especially those from marginalized backgrounds. He shared his story, not as a boast, but as a map. "You don't need to shout to be heard," he told a nervous busboy. "Just show up and don't back down." The boy nodded, his eyes bright with possibility. The mentorship program grew, with Marcus funding scholarships for culinary school. One server, inspired by his example, applied and won, dedicating her first dish to him. Marcus didn't take credit. He simply ate her trout, smiled, and said, "Keep cooking." A month later, Sterling's table hosted a community night, free meals for locals, no questions asked. The line stretched down Broughton Street, people of all backgrounds laughing, eating, sharing stories. Marcus served tables himself, his white shirt now a symbol of quiet revolution. The plaque gleamed in the corner, its words a silent vow. A young girl asked Marcus why he came back after that night. He knelt, meeting her eyes. "Because this place is home, and home deserves better." She hugged him and the crowd cheered, not for a hero, but for a man who'd made them all feel seen. Sterling's table became a beacon, its story taught in schools, cited in sermons, shared in podcasts. Marcus remained in the background, letting the restaurant speak for him. New staff wore pins with the plaque's words, a daily reminder of their mission. The restroom by the mop sink was renovated, now as elegant as the main one. Marcus's mother, though gone, was honored in small ways. A dish named after her, a photo in the staff room. Her dream lived in every warm plate, every open seat. Marcus carried her memory in his satchel, next to the contract that changed everything. Marcus didn't seek fame, but it found him. A documentary crew approached, wanting to tell his story. He agreed, but only if they focused on the restaurant, not him. The film, Table for All, won awards, its final scene showing Marcus eating alone. The same trout, now perfect, under the soft glow of a pendant light. The world saw a man who didn't need to shout to win. His victory was in the tables now filled with diverse faces, in the staff who greeted every guest with respect, in the plaque that promised dignity. Marcus watched it all, his satchel at his side, ready for the next fight. Years later, Sterling's table thrived, its story a legend whispered by waiters to new hires. Marcus still visited, always quietly, always in the same white shirt. The plaque remained, polished daily, its words etched in the hearts of those who read it. Diners came not just for food, but for the promise of a place where everyone belonged. The final scene lingers. Marcus at a central table, a warm plate before him, the restaurant alive with laughter. He takes a bite, his mother's dream in every flavor. The camera pulls back, revealing a packed dining room, every seat filled, every guest welcome. The screen fades to black with one line. Dignity isn't earned, it's given. Like, share, and join the movement for a world where every table is set for all.